everyone, it's Frank Walters here, and I recently did some on plein air painting in Norfolk. This is Wells next the sea, and what was really interesting was trying to capture this structure, but more importantly trying to get the composition right. So let's talk about composition. And I noticed when the students were painting, they had this building like really up here somewhere. And as I said to them, it's really, really important if you're doing a composition. If this is your paper, and you look at something, you should do a building simply by doing a little sort of three-dimensional box. And position that first. Don't start, oh, I better do the, because you end up going off the page, because you're not anchored anywhere. And I noticed that with two or three of my students were like, the top of this was coming out here, and then they didn't leave enough room for the water behind. When you're doing a composition on plein air or anywhere, you got to look at what you're doing and think, how's this going to work? That thing out here. You then do a mirror image. Then that thing sticks out there. Then we know that that bit of beach comes around here. So we now draw the horizon on the horizontal, and we get our verticals in. Always important, horizontals and verticals. Then you got this dark bit there with boats. Dark bit there with boats, and you've got other things going on. So once you know that, then you can start to paint that. Right, I'm going to get some little bit of cerulean blue. Just a little bit painting around that building, because it's some of that white. And then I want to get that in the water as well there. And imagine, if I was there in Norfolk, this is how I would sort of do it. I then get some of my nice raw sienna. Let's mix up some of that burnt sienna in there as well. For the sand. So immediately I've got a bit of a composition going on. Yeah, I have drawn it, and sometimes you can do it without drawing. But these things, and that's how I did that. Now I'm talking now because I've got to let that dry a bit. But what I'm going to do is then put the dark accents in there, and just put a little bit more. Just a little bit. Right, I'll come back to that when it's dry in a few minutes. But again, this is, what is the standard of watercolor? And I think that is up to you. Maybe you want it really highly finished, like spending forever doing every little window. I can't do that, I'm afraid. Some artists are really good at it. It's almost like looking at a photograph. You know what? There aren't enough hours in the day for me to do that. What happens when it's drinking time? You're still going to be carrying on painting windows when you should be having a beer. So it's up to you how you want to spend your time painting and what sort of level. I'm quite happy with this because it's got light and dark shades, but that's on plein air. I'll come back to this in a minute. Then I also did one. I hope you find this interesting. Then I did another one where I just didn't do any drawing whatsoever, and I just freewheeled it. And I had something like that. Now, there's no drawing there whatsoever, but the important bit, I'm not saying it's a great, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's a great painting, but there's a couple of things that are really quite important. And that is that, you know, we did the first wash and then we've let it dry. And then it's these big, strong values of purple that are there, but then come down there, that line comes down. It's the purple. And making sure you leave some light. You know, that expression I have, retain light. See, nice light over here. It's light. And you know what? I'm just talking about values again. That's all it is. Honestly, watercolor painting is all about that, the light and the dark values, nothing more. But it's remembering when to stop and let it dry. I mean, I'm impatient. You know, I sometimes make mistakes because I can't wait. But that's why I've put that thing over there. I'm not looking at it. I'll bring it back when it's dry and I'll carry on. That's a big thing to remember to do in watercolor painting, to do your first wash and let it dry, step away from the vehicle, go somewhere else, have a cup of tea, come back in about 10 minutes time. It'll be nice and dry. You can then do a nice glaze over the top of it. That's really important. So those are the en plein air. But what happens when you're in a studio and you got lots of time to paint? Well, I did a demo of this from a photograph, and I show you how different that is. And it's big as well because it's on a quarter imperial. There it is. So suddenly there's a bit more time, but it's still loose. I spent more time, but I haven't measured every window, and it's not exactly neat and tidy, but it has a bit of a charm. It's got a bit of atmosphere to it. A lot of the color is down here, which is mirror imaged from there. That line come in the vertical there. These lines reflected, and again coming where it's light here. I've got light here. Okay, there's a bit of a boat. I got involved in a bit of detail there, as much as I didn't want to do it. Even if you're painting and there is no sun in the sky and it's very flat like it is now, you got to make it up. You got a big call. You're going to say, right, sun's over there, so everything facing that is dark, and you put the shadow glaze over the dark side, leaving the light side, and then just don't be too neat, and it will look far better. It looks far more accomplished when it's just brush strokes and a few lines with the rigor. And that's it. So that's just painted in a studio over an hour or so, and these are done in 5 minutes. So that's how it sort of works. This is dry now, ish. We get a rigor. We just do some of these lines, and these aren't outlines, they're just rigor lines. So you've got that thing there, and then of course that will mirror image. See, it's still, see, I'm too fast here. Got these boats, some of those to be. These are almost like little outline type things going on here. Right, the better one is, it's still wet, but it doesn't, I don't care, to be honest. It doesn't matter. So going to get some French ultramarine. Just, no, that's all right. Do it in there. It's not French ultramarine, that is indigo. That's French ultramarine and a little bit of alizarin crimson. And then immediately we've got our shadows. So again, it's like here, and it follows through, leaving that bit of gap there. got stuff here. That's it. Now, that painting, it's not a great painting, it's not a marvelous thing, but what it has got, it's got strong values. It's not about the colour. I mean, I quite like the colour as well. I like the purple. I like the warmth of the purple against the cool. When we've done temperature, everybody remember temperature at all? About it's getting the balance of cool and warm together on the page. Otherwise, if you just do loads of blues, it's just cold. You need warmth as well. You need the balance of two. This has got a lovely, cool cerulean blue. But then when I mix that alizarin crimson, which is a very spiky colour, alizarin. I'm sure you've all got alizarin crimson. If you use it by itself, it's really powerful, isn't it? I never use it by itself. I always use it as a mixer, and you end up with these lovely purple. But you'll see I've been really careful to leave some little light slivers. That's me, and here as well, because that's a mirror image. And a little bit of, there was a line there, so I went there. I'm just always thinking mirror image. And when that's bone dry, I might even get a rubber and just a gentle rub out somebody or pencil lines. So you end up with just the value of the lights and the darks separating everything. And that is true. This is true watercolor painting. And we've just refined it right down. It was started out, I just drew a little oblong sort of box within knowing roughly where I want to put it. And then afterwards start putting on, and it makes you paint less detail. When I saw my students painting this, and they're doing this thing and that, and they're worried about the top of the roof, and who cares? Just get the general shape, not the tiny little, you know, be implicit, imply rather than explicit. Try and do everything in the right place. Imply stuff.